Thank you very much, Rosemary, and thank you everybody for coming here. Like Rosemary just said, my academic background is actually in geography, and my co-researcher, who I can't really see at the moment, Bruce is just there. Bruce's background is in architecture, but we work for CityFutures, and part of our core business is to do a lot of housing policy research. And so our disclaimer is that this is actually our first foray into energy research, but we come from a very social scientist oriented perspective, and I'm sure, no doubt, you've heard a lot of the stories that we're going to retell today, and like from the AEMC reports or the Brotherhood St. Lawrence reports that you already seen being talked about. So you can see the title of our project, which was completed between October 2015 and September 2016. So it's relatively recently. It was funded by the Cooperative Research Centre for Low Carbon Living, with in-kind support from the Salvation Army, the Office of Environment and Heritage, and also the Council of the Aging, with the aim of looking at the reasons why lower income households are not transitioning to what we term low carbon living. So improving the energy efficiency and also moving towards renewable energy. And try to provide some evidence for people to come up with solutions to overcome these barriers. We took a relatively mixed method approach to the usual academic route of literature and policy review, but we also talked to quite a lot of low-income households. By low-income households, we mean those that has income within the two lowest quintiles. But I can tell you that 80% of our participants actually had income in the lowest quintile, and that is less than $600 pre-tax income a week, which is quite low. We did a number of focus groups, 23 actually, across the country with lower income households, and you can see the 4 different household types there down at the bottom. We chose them because there was a pre-existing project by the CRC that identified these 4 household types as being most vulnerable to energy hardship in this country. So we focus on the barriers that these particular households faced. We travel around the country, also talk to a number of stakeholders, and these include advocates of different kinds, so energy advocates, housing advocates, and also service providers and charity organizations that a lot of these families actually access on a frequent basis to see what the actual problems are on the ground in each of these jurisdictions and see what else they are able to do to provide support to these lower income households. And after all of that, we went back to the 4 different jurisdictions and did a policy workshop to basically provide preliminary results of those 2, the focus groups and the interviews, and to talk about quite a lot of the suggestions that we asked these people to provide us in terms of how to actually overcome these barriers. So a lot of the suggestions that we're going to tell you today actually came from the lower income households themselves and the service providers that they actually frequent. We went all around the country, like I said, so from the very top to the very bottom. We chose them because they have very different climate zones. Here in Sydney, we are in the temperate zone, as was Adelaide, but Adelaide is a much drier climate than we are, so the cooling and heating needs are relatively different. And then we went to the 2 extreme ends of Darwin and Hobart as well. And Darwin, of course, they don't really have a cooling problem. They have a heating problem. Sorry, they don't have a heating problem, but a cooling problem. Whereas Hobart is exactly the other way around. We also did metropolitan as well as regional centres. So we did the capital cities of each of the 4 jurisdictions, as well as a nearby regional centre, just to see how different things work in a regional context. That is no surprise to anybody. The main barrier that quite a lot of the lower income households face is money troubles. This is taken from research done by Lynn Chester at the University of Sydney, and she looked at the average, I think it was retail cost of energy across the different jurisdictions between 2007 and 2014. So if you take 2007 as the base, by 2014, both Queensland and New South Wales, their prices have increased by more than double. And anywhere else, it has increased by at least 76%. And we know since 2014, everything has gone up again. And if you look at lower income households, quite a lot of our participants were on benefits. Average increase is about 2% a year. The gap is growing larger and larger and larger. And same for CPI when you compare the two. $1,200 per quarter on electricity. That's actually not the highest amount that we heard. On average, our participants pay between $600 and $800 per quarter in energy across the 4 jurisdictions. And of course, you pay more if you have a larger family. And you pay more as well if you live up north, where wet season, which is hot and humid, lasts for about 6 months. We didn't hear this directly, but we heard from a number of participants as well as from our stakeholders that quite a lot of people actually pay $2,500 per quarter in electricity bill alone. The highest amount that we heard was $3,000. That is a lot of money, not for just lower-income households, but anybody to pay just for electricity. And of course, the price of electricity is just one part of the story. How can they actually afford energy-efficient products when they are 4 times as much of a less efficient product? They don't have that extra $600 to spend to buy the efficient products. And quite a lot of them did say that, yeah, I know it's going to save me money in the long run, but I don't have the $600 upfront to pay for it, so I just have to cop it. Another thing was eligibility for assistance. Quite a lot of people actually are on the energy benefits or concession, but there are a number of things that don't work out for quite a lot of the families. This older gentleman, for example, he's a war veteran. He's on a veteran pension. He's not on Centrelink, so he's actually not eligible for the energy rebate. In order to qualify, he needs to spend all of his veteran pensions before he can move over to age pension and to Centrelink to access the energy rebate. So there are different criteria that people are actually missing out on the essential services that they require. We've heard split incentives as one of the most important non-financial barriers that we see. And of course, the Finkel review talked about that as being one of the main things that will come into play in the years to come. Between 2006 and 2016, the proportion of our population that live in private rental, or rental more generally, increased by 6%. So it's going to grow a lot more, not just for lower income households, but for everybody. Of all of our participants, 3/4 of them rent. Okay? This example, they're talking about relatively expensive things like insulation and solar panels, but we've also heard from a number of participants that, well, my landlord's not going to even put in efficient light bulbs. I need to fork that out myself. And if they are $3, $4, $5 a pop and you have to put in 10 of them, that's $30, and that's 2 weeks worth of bread and butter that they can't feed their children. Quite a lot of them also have pride and embarrassment as a major barrier. It's not easy to ask for help for anybody, let alone if you have to keep doing that over and over again. Whether it's because you used to work and now suddenly you find yourself in a situation where you need some assistance, or you come from an era where you just try to get by as much as possible without trying to ask for help. Inaccessible information. Quite a lot of people actually know that there's a lot of information about how to improve their efficiency out there, but they just know that it is out there. They don't know how to find them. A lot of things are online these days. Like the second quote said, I don't have internet at home. That's too expensive for me. All I have is on my phone or the hour that I can get once a week at the library. Even if they can get online, they don't know what to search for. Quite a lot of things that are available are relatively technical. And also, there are quite a lot of different terminologies for the same kind of information, particularly if you're thinking about things like hardship programs. Every single retail company have a different name for a hardship program. So if you want to find out information about what you need assistance on, once you switch company, you need to start from scratch again. And personal capacity. We didn't actually talk about this a lot in the focus groups or in the stakeholder interviews. We found this in a relatively similar research that was done in Vienna that also looked into the energy use of lower income households over there. And they find that quite a lot of people don't actually understand what they use. yes, it's all well and good that there are smart meters out there, but most of them don't have that access, or they don't know how to actually read them. So they don't know what they're using and how to actually improve their energy efficiency just by looking at their bill. But what does this mean to their everyday lives? If you don't use air conditioning or if you don't use heater, of course, it's going to affect your comfort and well-being. This gentleman, he actually lives in Catherine. He says he only uses the ceiling fan, but it doesn't work if it is 42 or 43 degrees inside. In Catherine, that is actually a relatively common weather phenomenon. This older lady, she said, I got sick 3 times because I couldn't afford heating last year. And we've heard similar stories from single parents that their kids keep getting sick because they can't keep their home warm. This older couple, they go to bed early. That's actually quite common. 7 o'clock, it's actually not bad. Quite a lot of people did say that, yes, I go to bed early so that I don't have to turn the heater on, put myself under the doona. That's all good. But I did hear a story from an older lady in Tasmania. She goes to bed as soon as she comes home from volunteering in winter, and that is 4:30 in the afternoon. That is not a life that anybody should lead. Like I said, it also impacts on their physical health. They get sick more often, but we've heard stories where they keep skipping meals. This gentleman, he just paid a bill, so he couldn't eat for 4 days. This other lady, she has skin cancer, and she can't even afford medication for her skin cancer. Most people don't skip medication. Medication is actually quite high on their priority. They know that that is something that they require, and they know that they can actually get assistance on food rather than on medication, so they often prioritize the medication. But on some occasions, they actually do need to skip medication. Stress and isolation. If you don't have money, you can't actually go out. Quite a lot of people don't have any social outlet. The majority of our participants, the main social outlet is a free meal that they get at the salvos once a week. That's all the social outlet that they get. You're always stressed because you don't know whether you're going to meet your next bill. You stay in bed all day, just try and avoid using any energy whatsoever. And also impact on the relationships. This single mother, she lives about 2 hours drive away from her daughter. They are on either side of Adelaide. She budgets very carefully so that she can travel on a regular basis to see her family. But if the daughter gives birth on the week that she hasn't budgeted to travel down, she will not see them until that week, because she knows if she does that, she will have to miss Christmas. This other single parent, she could only afford 1 Easter egg for her daughter. And all of these not only impact on the participants who came to our workshops, impact on their next generation as well. For the very first time in my career, someone cried in my focus group because a single mother, she told me, I can't afford to heat my home and my daughter is studying for her HSC. I don't know if that will impact on her future because she can't study properly and end up in the same cycle that I'm in now. So what can we do about it? From the lower end, we can provide more information. Quite a lot of the people that we talk to, the participants as also the stakeholders themselves, they don't want a hand out, they want a hand up. They want to be helped to help themselves. One of the best ways that we can do that is provide better information. Quite a lot of the information that we found back in 2015 in particular, there were long lists of things and tips that you can do, but they're all in black and white and all very text heavy and in technical terms. And that's not very easily understandable for anybody. So a lot of organizations are now starting to provide infographics like this. This is from a South Australian government agency. It was part of a trial. They're only handed out to participants of the workshop, so it's not publicly available. Or actually, I haven't checked recently, but it wasn't publicly available at the time. But if you provide, graphic information like that, it's very easy for people of any kind of capacity, whether it's a language issue, whether it's a knowledge issue, to understand, to help them help themselves. You also need assistance that is fit for purpose. yes, there are things like Eva Vouchers all around the country, but there are lots of conditions that apply to them. This particular charity that we spoke with, they said, yeah, we have a number of e-vouchers that we can provide for our clients, but bill has to be overdue before we can use that. It means that part of the vouchers go to the late fee that they have to pay for and just cover a very small part of the bill that they have to pay. And of course, if you're always short on cash, a pay-on-time discount is useless. Yes, a number of participants actually shop around to try and get a discount. I remember one gentleman who lives in Waterloo. He said, I'm really happy. I managed to get a 24% discount from my retailer. But of course, as soon as that bill is overdue, he forfeits that and he incurs a late fee, which is a very big double whammy for someone on very low income. How do we address split incentives? That's a tough cookie, isn't it? No one has found a solution just yet. We actually talked about this in length in our workshop. And I think the final solution that we came up with is that you need both a carrot and a stick. So you need to incentivize your landlords to want to provide this kind of insulation, solar, efficient kind of features, but also mandate them. In the UK and New Zealand, for example, they have recently introduced minimum standards before you can rent out your properties. It's not fully in place yet. I think they should be fully in place by the end of next year. So we shall see how that happens. We did talk, however, with our workshop in Tasmania, and they did say, yeah, we have finally got minimum standards for our rental properties, but they are absolutely very minimal. You have to have a roof, a workable tap, I think, and a heater. Doesn't matter what it is, just a heater. You need to support the support services that provide assistance to these families. There are lots and lots of funding for pilot programs, but they run for 1 to 2 years. Quite a few of our participants did say that, oh yeah, I heard about this program the other month, but they told me that it's winding up in 2 weeks, so I can't join in. And that's the same story over and over again. Like this welfare advocacy, it doesn't actually help, because by the time you get the ball rolling, you recruit your participants and do what you need to do. It's time to write out your financial acquittal and then move on to the next thing. So it doesn't really help anybody. So one of the things that they mentioned that would be useful is that if you find a successful solution, as part of your pilot funding, you need to provide a business case and make it work for everybody else. A lot of people are very frustrated by our different levels of government. As you can see up there, again, we're trailing behind. We're doing better, but we're still trailing behind across many fronts in terms of providing access to clean energy and efficient measures. And social impact bonds. That's something that quite a lot of people actually want, because they live in rental or they live in an apartment. If they can't access some tenants, if they want to buy energy or clean energy that they can use for themselves. Because most of them actually really want to support the concept of low carbon living, but they just can't. And in most cases, they support it because of their future generation. They want to leave a better world, or at least not as terrible world, for their children and grandchildren. So there is actually a strong desire to support these kind of programs. There's just not many avenues for them to take part in. I will end with this slide, which is a bit busy, but these are some of the publications that we have produced out of this report. So out of this project. If you want more information about particular things, we're happy. Bruce is just right down the very end there, and we're happy to speak with you more about anything in particular of our project, or refer you to the publications that we have. So thank you very much.